Hold on a second, Stephen.
Recording in progress.
And we are live, Chair Becker.
The meeting of the Newark Planning Commission will come to order. Will you please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for those participating via Zoom this evening, when we get to the item that you wish to speak on, please use the raise the hand feature, and city staff will turn on your microphone so that you can speak at the appropriate time. First order of business is roll call, and let the record show that all members of the Planning Commission are in attendance this evening with the exception of Commissioner Aguilar. That brings us to item B, minutes. This is the approval of minutes of the regular Planning Commission meeting for June 28, 2022. And may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Fitz, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Otterstetter, can we have a vote? And we're going to go ahead and use the voting. Okay, the motion passes 4 ayes, 1 absent. Just to item C, which is written communication. Do we have any written communications this evening?
None this evening.
Okay, that brings us to item D, which is oral communications, giving anybody in the audience the opportunity to speak on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Do we have anybody that wishes to speak? Okay, seeing not, do we have anybody via Zoom that wishes to speak this evening?
There are no speakers via Zoom who wish to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Okay, that brings us to item E, which is public hearings. And the first item is item E1. This is a public hearing to consider a resolution recommending approval of a conditional use permit, which is U-2021-006. This is for construction of a new monopole. The proposed monopole communication tower is located at 35360 Fircrest Street, which has an APN number of 537-046-720. And the subject site is zoned Business Technology Park and has a general plan land designation of special industrial. And this item is going to be presented this evening by, I believe it's Shavetta Sharman.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to go ahead and present this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Tiriano.
Thank you. Yes, as you remember from the last meeting, this item was continued. The subject was that the project was missing documentation to require the monopole, the existing monopole as part of the application, to be taken down. As it turns out, the existing monopole is not, the existing monopole owner is not a part of the new CUP application. So therefore, the applicant, which is AT&T, provided documentation that the Crown Castle, the monopole owner of the existing pole, was going to take down the monopole at the same time frame as the new monopole is being installed. So although they could not commit to taking it down, they do intend to decommission the existing monopole when the new monopole is erected.
Okay. Thank you very much. And the commission did receive the letters and also that email as well regarding this issue. So at this point, does anybody on the commission, before I open up the public hearing, have any questions for staff? No? Okay. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing and allow anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item to do so. Anybody? Okay, seeing not, does anybody via Zoom wish to speak on this matter?
There are no members on Zoom who wish to speak.
Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and I'll bring it back to the commission for any comments or any last-minute questions. Do we have any? Commissioner Fitz?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that the applicant had agreed to the conditions that the staff came up with in the letter, and so that means they agree to all the conditions, because before he had that one exception.
Yes.
We do have the project applicant on Zoom, and I believe that he can address that question. So I will allow him to talk.
Great, then I'll go ahead and I'll ask that question. Have you read the conditions, the revised conditions of approval, and do you agree to them?
Yes, thank you, Commissioners and Planning staff. Planning staff did revise the condition of approval to allow for that overlap of time in which both sites could be operational to prevent a gap in coverage. So with that, yes, we have read the conditions of approval and agreed to them.
Thank you very much. I do have one comment to make. Now, I did read the letters and I read the email, and this is really for staff. There is no absolute guarantee that that pole is going to be removed. What are the city's options should the property owner that has control of that pole, after all the equipment has been removed and the new pole has been activated, what are our options for making sure that that pole is removed if the property owner does not do that?
Sure. So per our code, a monopole or a telecommunications tower, as it's described in our zoning code, once it's decommissioned, meaning the AT&T equipment is taken off, it's considered abandoned after 60 days. So after 60 days that the equipment has been removed, we would then follow up with that Crown Castle, who is the owner of that monopole, and ask them to remove it and begin that process and work with them on that.
Okay. And if push comes to shove?
Then code enforcement gets involved.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioners have any other? Okay, at this point, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the resolution for the conditional use permit as recommended by staff.
I'll move to approve.
Commissioner Otterstetter, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Bogasich? Okay, all those in favor, let's vote. Motion passes, 4 ayes and 1 absent. Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to item E2 under public hearings. And E2 is a hearing to consider a resolution of the Planning Commission recommending that the City Council a general plan amendment, a specific plan amendment, a design review, a minor use permit, a density bonus, a park agreement amendment, a dedication agreement, alternative means of compliance to payment of the housing impact fee, a vesting tentative track map, and an addendum to the Dunbarton Transit-Oriented Development Specific Plan Environmental Impact Report, and also certifying that the previously approved EIR addresses all of the impacts of the proposed FMC Willow and Grand Park development to allow for phased residential and commercial development at 8787 Enterprise Drive with APN numbers 537-0852-001-08, 537-0852-002-02, and 092-0100-005. We also are being asked to approve a resolution recommending that the City Council of the City of Newark adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the City of Newark for the property located at 8787 Enterprise Drive. So at this point, I know we have a staff report, and I understand that the applicant also has a presentation that they'd like to give as well. So why don't we go ahead and start with staff, Mr. Interiano?
Thank you, Chairman and Planning Commission. This has been a project that's been around being reviewed for quite a bit of time. Fortunately, we had some assistance with this project because it came during a time when we were short-staffed. We have with us Mandy Kang. She is with M Group, Metropolitan Planning Group, and she will be giving the presentation tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and ladies and gentlemen. The project before you is the FMC Willow and Grand Park project. It is a request for 279 multifamily units, a mixed-use building which will consist of 3,600 square feet of retail, 91 multifamily affordable units, and a 1,485 square foot community building, along with 1.8 acres, which will be set aside for a future transit station, and a 5-acre Grand Park, which is actually a revision to the previously approved park. The project is located at 8787 Enterprise Drive on the northwest corner of Enterprise Drive and Willow Street. It is 22.1 acres, and the area is essentially a rectangle that is divided by the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission Hetch Hetchy Pipeline. It is bordered by Willow Street to the east, Enterprise Drive to the south, Union Pacific Railroad to the north, and a residential subdivision to the west. It is also part of the Bayside Transit-Oriented Development Specific Plan. A little history about the specific plan is that it was adopted in 2010. This project site was seen to be more of a neighborhood center because it included a lot of the, or actually all of the commercial and retail, commercial office area and high-density residential, along with the transit station, which was meant to be the focal point of the specific plan. The specific plan anticipated 2,500 residential units, 35,000 square feet of retail and commercial, 195,000 square feet of general office, and a 5-acre park. Currently, we are at 1,828 units built with 7 parcels which are still undeveloped. And with this project's approval, there would be 2,198 units built along with 3,600 square feet of retail. A little history about the project. As Art mentioned, this project has been around for quite some time, and when the applicant came to staff, the request was quite substantial in terms of changing the land use. So staff consulted with the land econ group and asked them to conduct a land use feasibility analysis to see if the changes would actually be warranted. And the conclusion of the analysis was that the elimination of the office was warranted, considering the current state of the economy and current time. A reduction in retail was also supported, and a reduction in the residential density was also supported. Staff brought the project to the Planning Commission and the City Council in February of 2021 to receive some feedback during the study session, and based on the feedback that was received, staff worked with the applicant to revise the project accordingly. Staff also worked with Samtrans to see what the outlook would be for the potential transit station in 15 to 20 years. Once we consulted them, Kimley Horn worked with Samtrans on a lot of their projects. So they did some transit station area planning for staff and helped to determine the appropriate size of the transit station. That was a big question for staff because we didn't know exactly what needed to go in that transit station area. They concluded that 1.1 acres would be sufficient, a sufficient area for the transit station, and the applicant is providing 1.8 acres, which would account for any changes that may happen in the next 10, 15, 20 years. The applicant also conducted a virtual town hall meeting on January 20th of this year to see if there were any residents or people in the area that had any questions or concerns about the project. And a majority of the questions were regarding timeline and when the project would be approved, Grand Park, and other projects, and the applicant answered those questions. As part of this project, there are several entitlements and agreements that have been requested. The first is the design review, and that is required for all new construction. As I mentioned, the project site is a rectangle, essentially, and it's split by the Hetch Hetchy parcel. Staff did work with the SFPUC to see if there would be any way for us to get some type of crossover over that parcel, even a pedestrian access or bicycle access, and they said no because it would interfere with their future operations and maintenance. They're going to have some staging equipment there, and it wouldn't be safe for anybody to cross over that area. So the site is essentially split into the north site and the south site. The north site would have the 91-unit affordable mixed-use building with 3,600 square feet of commercial on the bottom floor, and also the 1.8-acre future transit station parcel. Access to that site would be off of Willow Street. going in from a street called G Street, and you would have the transit station parcel on the right, and the left side would have the mixed-use building and parking and the residential units in the back. The south side would have the Grand Park on the very west. It would also have 123 multifamily units along with 92 townhomes, and there would be 2 access points, the main one coming from Hickory Street, and the 1,485 square foot community center would be located very close to the Grand Park adjacent to it. As part of the design review, staff reviewed the architectural style. The applicant went with the agrarian contemporary style, which is a very modern and contemporary look. It's similar to the neighboring residential developments. It's a very clean and light color palette. Very simple. Material includes horizontal lap siding, stucco, stone veneer, brick. There's balconies and awnings to break up the long buildings, mass changes, and articulation throughout. The transit station, again, as I previously mentioned, staff worked with Samtrans to figure out what the appropriate size, location, and access points would be for the transit station. There is going to be a transit station dedication agreement that is proposed, which is how the property will be dedicated to the city. And the requirements for the transit station included a fixed platform, parking areas to the east, including a parking structure up to 4 stories, and it would include about 600 parking stalls. And there would be a bus turnaround, drop-off area for pedestrians. All of this, again, would have been appropriate in a 1.1 acre site, but the applicant is proposing a 1.8 acre site, which would be more than enough area to account for some changes that may come about in the next 10, 15 years. Staff reached out to Samtrans to see what the status of the Dumbarton Rail Corridor project is, and we were told that it is listed in the Plan Bay Area 2050 in its 2036-2050 timeline for implementation, and Samtrans is also coordinating with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission regarding the funding. The Bay Trail goes throughout the specific plan, and for this project, it would start at the very north end of the Grand Park, and it would include a 20-foot wide trail corridor. It would go down Enterprise and go east towards Willow Street and go up Willow Street with 12-foot wide multipurpose trail along that area. And if you look at the picture, the very top picture, it shows what it would look like along Enterprise Drive. And here is a map of what the Bay Trail looks like throughout the TOD area. It comes from the Bay Shores project to Bridgeway, to the west to the Harbor Point project, and then down the Grand Park area towards Enterprise and up Willow. The park agreement amendment has been requested. It was the Grand Park was previously approved with the Harbor Point subdivision, but the applicant wanted to make a small change because there was some environmental remediation work and done on part of the park area. So the new proposal is to extend some of the park area to the east along Enterprise Drive, and then the northeast area of the park would come down. The park size would remain the same, and all of the previous amenities, including the dog parks, the amphitheater, wildflower garden, play equipment areas, everything would stay, and then they would also include with this new proposal an all abilities playground, a wider path for the Bay Trail, and a large open space for the soccer field. The applicant has also requested a minor use permit to allow for reduced parking throughout the project site by 20% due to the close proximity of the project to the future transit station, and then also a density bonus incentive for providing affordable units, and that incentive is a request to have 1 parking stall for each of the affordable units. So the applicant would have needed 861 parking stalls if the minor use permit and the density bonus incentive were to be approved, they would need 649 stalls, but they're providing 739 parking stalls. The applicant has also requested a vesting tentative map. This is for all of the request 279 multifamily units, 3,600 square foot mixed use 3,600 square feet of the retail area and the affordable building. The community building, 5-acre park revision, and the 1.8 acres that'll be set aside for the future transit station. The vesting tentative map would consist of 36 lettered parcels. As part of the project, a specific plan amendment will be required. If you look at the top map, it shows what is currently proposed in the specific plan. It shows the transit station, basically, or at least half of it on the Hetch Hetchy parcel and part of it on the Samtrans parcel, which are not buildable areas. And then commercial retail, commercial office, and high-density residential. The applicant is proposing to change those areas to the transit station in the very top west corner. I'm sorry, the east corner. And commercial mixed use for the mixed use building. And the Grand Park would remain parks and open space, and the rest of the site would be medium high density residential. And in order to match the specific plan amendment, general plan amendment is also requested. Same to the transit station area would be public institutional, commercial mixed use for the commercial mixed use building, and the Grand Park would remain parks and recreational facilities, and the rest of the site would be medium density residential. A zoning map is also requested. Currently, the site, majority of it is zoned business and technology park and park. So the applicant is proposing public facilities for the Hetch Hetchy parcel, commercial mixed use with form-based code for the mixed use building, transit station for the transit station, and residential medium density with form-based code for the residential area. The project includes the affordable housing. The mixed-use building will consist of parking and retail on the first floor, and residential amenities and retail on the second floor, and the rest of the other floors would include residential. The City of Newark requires developers to pay an impact fee to preserve or increase the supply of affordable housing in the city. The applicant has decided to provide on-site affordable housing units to mitigate that impact fee and provide an appropriate mix of the affordable units. As you can see on the chart, they are required to have 85 units, but they're providing 90. And USA Properties Fund would construct and manage the affordable units for 55 years at the affordability levels that have been shown here. And there would be a local preference. And by local preference, the first priority would go to people who live in Newark, and the second would be for people who work in Newark, and then the third would go to residents that live in Alameda County. The developer would also enter into an affordable housing compliance agreement and an affordable housing satisfaction agreement. The City of Newark had certified a program environmental impact report in July of 2011 for the specific plan area. An initial study was prepared for this project, which examined the potentially adverse effects on the environment that could occur if this project were to be approved. And the initial study demonstrated that the proposed project would be substantially similar to the previously evaluated project, and it would not result in any new significant environmental effects or substantial increase in the severity of any previously identified significant effects. An addendum has been prepared to show that there is no requirement for a subsequent EIR or a negative declaration. Staff has found that the proposed project is consistent with the objectives, policies, and vision of the Bayside Transit-Oriented Development Specific Plan, Zoning Ordinance, and the General Plan. Staff recommends by resolution that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the two following resolutions. A resolution recommending the City Council approve the amendment to the General Plan, amendment to the Bayside Transit-Oriented Development Specific Plan, design review, minor use permit, density bonus incentive, vesting tentative map, dedication agreement, park agreement amendment, alternate means of compliance to payment of the housing impact fee, and an initial study and addendum to the program EIR for the Bayside Newark Transit-Oriented Development Specific Plan. And the second resolution would be recommending that the City Council approve an ordinance amending the zoning map. Staff is available for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the detailed report. That does a good job of consolidating a very, very comprehensive and complex project into a relatively short presentation, so thank you. Before we hear, I understand that the applicant, Ms. Kang, would like to do a presentation as well. Did the commission want to ask staff any questions, or we want to hold those until we hear the applicant's presentation? That's okay with holding? Why don't we go ahead and move on to the applicant's presentation, and then at that point, I'll open up the public hearing, and then we can go from there.
Ready to go? Good evening. My name is Mark Butler, Rural Communities, 2603 Camino Ramon in San Ramon. To introduce myself, I'm the Senior VP of Integral. You've seen me up here many times. I began on this project in 2009. I'm joined tonight with members of our consulting team. And on their behalf, I want to say it's a pleasure to be here tonight to discuss the Willow and the Grand Park community. It's truly an amazing project. I also want to thank Stephen Turner and especially Art and Mandy for all their hard work. We worked for over 2 years on this great project. There are many components and many agreements, as you said, and she did a fantastic job of summarizing it. So we're going to keep this really short because you'll see I have a lot of the same slides. And she did a fantastic job. So we can move to the next slide. It's, as you know, the nice thing about this project, in my perspective, is it kind of completes the puzzle. We started in 2009, laid out a specific plan vision that was very similar to what you see here tonight. And this is literally the last major piece of the puzzle, and it includes all the key elements, the Grand Park, the transit station, and so it's just really exciting. It's our 5th project in the TOD, as you know, and it's a great joy to see it all come together. As you can go to the next slide, Art, as Nancy mentioned before, it's really a tale of 2 projects, the southern and the northern. Starting with the southern parcel, of course, we have the Grand Park. Michael Schrock, our landscape architect, is going to kind of dive into some of the features here in a second. We've already covered the product lines, which he'll get into as well. The northern half, or the north parcel, does include the affordable housing, which we see as a critical component of this project. And then the parcel F, future transit station. That's something very important. I just wanted to add that we are committed to not only donating the parcel itself at no cost to the city, we're also going to improve it in the interim condition that you see there with a grass field and a parking lot. That'll be about 64 parking spaces, and that won't be turned over to the city until the last unit is actually closed out. So we'll be maintaining that for a few years with our partner Lennar. We can move to the next one. As we saw this slide earlier, it is the housing, affordable housing development by USA Housing. I just wanted to add that USA is under contract. They've been working hard on this project already. They're here tonight. A couple quick comments on if we could flip to the next slide. I want to just talk dive in a little bit more on the rents. As was stated earlier, we have an option under the agreement to go, 30 to 80% AMI. We think we're going to target a little lower even than what was shown in the staff report. To give you an idea how these rents would break down, a 1-bedroom would be somewhere in the $770 to $1798. If you drive a few blocks up on Sycamore, a 1-bedroom would cost you $2,200 to $2,500 a month. A 2-bedroom would be more like $3,200 to $3,400. We can offer them, but under $1,000 to maybe $2,000. And then, of course, the 3-bedrooms, which are almost unheard of in our market. They're hard to find, frankly. And we have almost 26% of the project will be 3-bedrooms. So it's a nice even mix of 1s, 2s, and 3s, trying to target the families and trying to really provide housing that doesn't exist in the market. And so that's really exciting. And we love USA. They're a fantastic firm. We're using them on our Station East project in Union City. And so we're just really looking forward to doing another project with them. Next slide, please. Again, this is the Grand Park, which, of course, Mandy already touched on, and Michael's going to describe a little bit more in detail. In fact, I'm going to bring Michael up now because it's his team that actually designed it the first time and with these minor revisions. So this is Michael Schrock.
Good evening. I cannot tell you how excited I'm to be here. I was just thinking about this. When I first started hanging out in this city and doing work in the city, I was just in Houston with my 21-year-old son. He was 8. And this Grand Park is the whipped cream. This is the cherry on top. There's a lot of people who live there now that we have all designed their homes, designed their parks. And this is 5 times the size of the park in Bay Shores, which we did. And it's a very used park, but this is going to be really thing. And so a long time ago when parks were designed, it was a big field, it was trees on the outside, and you had a tot lot. You had 5, 6 amenities. This has 53 different things to do. From the amphitheater, it'll be a place to get married. We'll have soccer fields, and it's designed not just to be interesting, but actually undulating. The walkways will go up and down. The playground will go up and down over boulders, and so that it's more of a naturalistic experience. There will be tiered things for the amphitheater. If you have a small dog, there's a place for that. If you have a large dog, there's a place for that. There's shade. I mean, it's amazing how many amenities we've really put in here. It's a curving parking lot. It'll be dominated by landscape. I think there's over 400 trees being planted, and we're just excited to be here because this is really this is where it's really going to happen. There's a lot of people who live there who really need this park. So there's some images. I'll just point to you. It's funny. I was thinking I've been doing this so long. I think my hair was the same color of Art's when I started too. So, but I think you can see there's a lot of stuff going on. But I think what I really want you to grasp from this is how large this park is. You know, you see a plan on a scale and you really don't understand it. 5 acres is that's 5 football fields of land. It's a large park, and this isn't a small dog park. This is a large dog park where you'll really be able to use the ball throwers and that kind of thing. So, you can see we've really done state-of-the-art kind of tot lot area and with rolling berms and shade areas that'll have the vines growing up over it. Good job. And then it's funny, when we started Bay Shores, we had this ridiculously short segment of the Bay Trail, and it was like from here to there, but that's all that it had. And so I remember detailing those sections up here. It would be the 12-foot section. And then we went to Bridgeway, and now to Harbor Point, and now this is going to take you around. Now this is going to be like a 2.5-mile run one way. So I mean, this is really going to be a athletic, healthy, key moment to the whole community. It's really going to tie it all together. I look forward to one day when it then connects and keep going. And so, and we're excited that they're going to maintain and build. We're going to have the split rail fence and lawn out there for people to play on, and the parking lot that will be overflow for both the affordable and just residents. And so I think this will be a nice amenity to the city. Mandy did a good job on the presentation, by the way. You speak very well. And she actually said, you can go to the next slide. We really wanted this to be feel more urban with the retail. My hope is that there's a morning cafe that serves breakfast and a wine bar at night, that kind of retail where it's really a community feel. And so we wanted the architecture to take the colors and materials that have already been done throughout the Dumbarton specific plan, but make it a more urban feel and some different way. These units live light, breezy. There's a lot of corner units, huge decks, which are really like outdoor rooms that are furnishable. That's what really defines the architecture on all these products. Most townhomes are 3 stories up and down, but these are really large living spaces. They live open and bright. I think it goes back to you, Warren.
Thanks, Michael. So as you can see, we're really excited about this. This has been a lot of work, but it's been a lot of fun as well. Just real quickly recapping what we think the project benefits are. Number one, it completes the original vision. It takes that blighted, fenced-off area, former industrial use, and just makes it what you saw tonight. We do the affordable housing by someone who's going to own it and manage it professionally, like they did with the Newark Station seniors. The 5-acre park is going to be enjoyed by everyone in the TOD, including residents in Newark. And then the 1 acres of land that's set aside for the future transit station really gives the city confidence that when the Dumbarton Rail comes, you'll be able to execute on that vision. and then, of course, the Bayside Trail. So again, I just want to thank you for being here and for all your support. And if you have any questions, we're here. We have the whole team from environmental to land use, you name it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will be bringing you back up here in just a few moments. Okay. Okay. That presentation was equally well done. Thank you very much, especially the park component is going to be a jewel in the city of Newark. Okay, at this point, I'm going to ask if any of our commissioners have any questions for staff or the applicant. Commissioner Bokosich, go ahead.
This is, sorry, I'm a dog lover. So on the dog park, are they like the large and small next to each other?
That's right. We have a separate large and small dog park.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Commissioner Fitz?
Yes. I just wanted to, it looks like a great park. I couldn't find in the detail, what is the perimeter of the park? Is there going to be fencing that's going to keep it away from the Hetch Hetchy right away all along there? I couldn't see the level of detail on the plans. Is there going to be public access, that Hetch Hetchy easement?
No, the Hetch Hetchy is off limits, so there'll be a retaining wall along both edges with a wrought iron steel cap fence over a heavy brick retaining wall. So it'll be very sturdy but see-through. So it'll be really pretty to look at because that's mostly green all the time. But yeah,
Right.
there will be no access to the Hetch Hetchy.
Right. And I'm assuming that follows through with the residential area that's on the other side of the park too, that's back
Yes.
to the Hetch Hetchy, yeah.
That's
And I
the-
saw the 8-foot masonry sound wall for the homes right by the railroad tracks there.
Correct.
I want to make sure that we have enough sound deadening there. And also the other concern I might have, and maybe get a little advanced, but is there any way that, I don't know if there'd be concerts at this park in the amphitheater, is there any kind of a noise mitigation level? It gets very noisy over in that part of the town because it's all flat. I happen to live over across just the other side of Thornton Avenue. And sometimes I can hear what I think is from Shoreline Amphitheater all the way across the bay on certain conditions. So I was just concerned, I didn't see anything in there, what types of activities and noise levels we might be dealing with something with that park.
Yes, thank you. Stephen Turner, Community Development Director. Once the city takes control of that park, our Parks and Community Services Department will likely have a variety of programs programmed for that park. But typically, music and other kind of sound-generated uses do have to comply with our municipal code in terms of noise and noise levels. So those would be considered as we consider the programming for the park.
And of course, that would be monitored. If there's any complaints, the city would deal with it, right?
Yes, of course.
Great, that's all I have right now.
Okay. Any other questions? I do have a few questions and a comment or two, and it probably is going to go back and forth between staff and perhaps the applicant as well. So why don't we start with there's a revised park agreement, and there was delivery dates that were listed in that. One actually used the term Grand Park delivery date, and it's being revised from December 31st, 2023 to December 31st, 2025. In the next paragraph, there's a term called park delivery, and that date is, it looks like it's July 3rd, 2028. What's the difference between the two dates?
Well, that's a great question. I didn't cover this in my presentation, but as many of you know, in addition to all this stuff we're seeing above ground, there was also a major $15 million USD force main replacement project, which I know you guys know about. Yeah. So that was really driving the delivery of the Grand Park because we couldn't, FMC Corporation, who's here tonight, they couldn't have access to do their final park remediation until that work was done and certified and the easement was relieved. So that just happened actually this month. And so they're out there beginning their work. So now they're going full throttle to finish that remediation work. And that the timing of the Grand Park we think will start roughly in mid-24. So we should have a park that's done in 25. So that's our goal. The 28 was really put in there in case we had some kind of force majeure delay or the USD issue dragged on and on. But we're not going to come near that 28. And we want to get the park done as fast as possible. Lennar is going to build the park, and they want it for their residents.
Sure.
So as soon as FMC is done with their remediation, They've got some clearance work to do through the board next year, and then we're off doing the Grand Park as soon as possible.
Okay, so I'll ask this of staff. So I assume staff's comfortable in the packet. We didn't get the full agreement. We got the revisions, which is why I think there was that confusion on the July 3rd, 2028 versus the 2025 date. So the 2028 date is what? That's a worst-case scenario date? It is what is that? Is that a drop-dead date?
Yes, Chairman. So yeah, I did look into this for the park delivery date. That's the construction drawings must be basically approved for this project.
Okay.
And then the delivery date is, of course, the park delivery. I guess it's a little confusing. But the park delivery is, yeah, the delivery of the actual park with all construction being completed before we release the bonds back to the applicant.
And so that is the July 3rd, 2028 date?
Yes.
Okay. But of course,
We plan to
developers
be-
motivated to get it done because you've got
100%.
thousands of residents there that would like
Yep.
to see that park.
And we've cleared the last hurdle. The hurdle, frankly, was the USD work, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why that took a long time. But it's done, it's working, they're happy as heck, and that's a great improvement in itself, even though it's underground.
Yes, definitely. Okay, also in the financing agreement, there's a Mello-Roos that's $220 per year with an escalator. What is that money going to be used for?
Art, you want to take that one? Probably the landscape district. I have Justin here, he'll answer that.
Good
Okay,
evening,
great.
Commissioner.
And then maybe
My
Art
question.
can jump in here.
So the CFD district is there to handle the maintenance obligations related to the median landscaping and street lights that go in that are in the public right of way.
Okay, so oftentimes, the city engineering department requires that a district be established. You as the property owner.
Correct.
Then votes on it and establishes it. Is that what that?
Yeah, and there's been one that's been consistent throughout the entire Dumbarton TOD that all the projects have annexed into. It's, an engineering thing that Diana Kanko generally heads up, so Art's not usually involved on that aspect of it.
Yeah, and we have Diana here who can speak to the details of that.
Yeah, so she's very
You could just
familiar
nod your head, Diana. Is that what it is?
Can you
Why don't
please
you
come
come
up
on
just
up
for
here?
the record?
Good evening, Commissioners. So just to clarify, I believe the language in the agreement indicated that it's similar or something similar to a community facilities district. And what we have established out at TOD is a landscaping and lighting district. So it allows for assessment for landscaping maintenance after it's constructed.
All right, so the developer will sign the agreement with the city to make sure that that continues into perpetuity, I assume.
Prior to any home occupancies, we require that they be annexed into a landscaping and lighting district, which has already been established. Then the engineer's report's prepared, and we hold a public hearing to officially annex it in. So that would be something that will be done prior to any occupancies.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Diana.
Okay, next question has to do with the affordable housing component.
Sure.
You know, when I initially read the staff report, I envisioned this 6-story, for lack of a better word, a project of some sort. And I think anybody that's been around for a while understands what I mean by that. When you build all of the affordable housing in one location, the concern is always that at some point in the future, that building will be pointed out as, well, that's where the affordable housing is, or that's where those people live. And now, the fact that USA Housing is going to be managing that property, they'll have a manager on staff. It's not like those types of developments in the past. Also, they have a great record with senior stations as far as handling that. But it is different than senior stations. It is a different type of a development. And I got to be honest, my initial reaction to just having all of the affordable housing in one 6-story building, I got an uneasy feeling with that, to be honest with you. But after looking at the design, talking to staff, I got more comfortable with it. But on the record, I just wanted to point that out.
And I can have USA, I believe Jutton's here. He can also chime in if you'd like, but I do know that these buildings that they're building these days they're almost indistinguishable. It's hard to tell in the market rate from an affordable, just in the quality of materials alone. But we're very confident with the programming they have that we'll get the families in there and they'll be happy with the services provided by USA. And they have numerous projects throughout the state. And if you want to see some older ones that are maybe 20 years old, they have a portfolio of hundreds of projects throughout the state. We'd be happy to provide that to give you more assurance.
Okay. One other question regarding that. Again, just a ballpark. The cost to develop that 6-story affordable housing building is approximately what?
About $40 million. So just so everybody's clear, the Integral is donating the land to USA. We're also doing all the horizontal improvements of the utility stubs, and we're giving them a large cash subsidy so that they can be competitive and go out in the tax credit. So it's a combination of using tax credit financing and all their expertise, but also the donation from the developer side. But it's about a $40 million build.
Okay. So just for clarification, typically if you would have paid the in lieu, that would have been about $16.5 million.
Between the two projects, that's right. A little bit less than that. I think the staff report had 16. It's FMC Harbor Point's on older projects that had about a 25% lower affordable fee than Willow did, but it's about a little under 10 million for Willow and about 7, it's about 6 or 7 for combined, so about 16.
So the value is actually there for this development.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. And then my last thing regarding the affordable housing, another initial concern was the reduction in the parking, and I do understand there's a density bonus that you qualify for. Just, it concerns me that we're reducing the parking because of the future transit station, but that transit going in there may be a decade off. Regardless of people's income, they drive and they have automobiles. You've got 3-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units. People have kids, they drive. My concern is that, you've got 91 parking spots for that development for 91 units.
Yeah, parks at 1 per unit.
Yeah. And, our typical standard is 2.5. So people are going to drive. It's going to be a while to get that transit station actually active. So again, it is a concern that I have that it's inadequately parked and that there will be spillover into those residential neighborhoods and on the street. And it's already impacted over there anyway. If you drive through, there's lots of cars parked on the street. So
well, let me just add one more comment. I did want to point out that I agree with you, but the reason for the limited parking, of course, is because of the size of the station. So we talked about 1.1, we ended up with 1.8. So that pinched down the site a little bit. Mm-hmm. But we do have the P4 cap, which is, again, up 64 parking spaces. We haven't entered in any formal discussions, but that would be a potential shared parking arrangement. Again, not negotiated yet. Right. Don't want to open that up here. Did you want to add something?
And Jayden could, most affordable are now down to 0.25 or 0.5 spaces. It's actually USA Housing is really big on providing adequate, I think. But I would say the best thing about this project is there's actually a 64-space parking lot that the city is going to control right across the street. I never saw this as the Willow Housing, the affordable building, and the station. I see it all working synonymously. If you think about when parking is needed most in residential, it's at the evening. That's not when you need it for a transit station. It's actually a perfect shared parking relationship. So, and it'll be there for a long time for them to use, or if the city allows for it.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question before I open the public hearing. The staff report talked about 4-story buildings, and I'm not talking about the affordable, and then there was even a reference to a 5-story building in there.
Yeah, there's no 5-story townhomes, but there is a 3-story townhome with a loft. So imagine a loft with a veranda terrace outside. And that's only on 2 of the 4 split units, and they're only the ones along Enterprise. And we did that to kind of match the massing with the affordable building. Give it a little more urban feel because you're close to a transit hub. And so that's more of an architectural detail. We did it at the Center Point community in Milpitas at that BART station there. And it looks really good. It's right along Montague. So some of the higher traffic areas, we just add that little pop-up to give it a little more density look.
And they probably have a better view as well.
Great terraces outside, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, that was the end of my questions at this point. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing and allow anyone in the audience who wishes to speak up on this item to do so. And we're going to begin with the applicant, so I'm going to have you come back up again. In reviewing the conditions of approval, it's a very lengthy document. So I just got to ask the question, have you read all of the conditions of approval, and do you agree to them?
Yes, we've read through all the conditions of approval, and we have agreed to all of them. We have a couple things Art and I are still talking about with respect to one condition involving the P4 cap and the regional board, but we're going to discuss that between now and the council. But yes, all the conditions are fine.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience who wishes to speak on item E2? Anybody? Okay. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
We have one speaker, Chair Becker. That is Edward Chu. And Mr. Chu, you are able to speak at this time. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Edward Chu. I'm a resident and homeowner in the Bayshore community, currently living inside the development right now. So I have 2 questions. So I love first of all, I love how we're designing a walkable and transit-oriented development in this neighborhood. But my concern is due to the due to the reduction in retail inside the new plan. So will there be plans to sort of construct grocery stores so residents can obtain essential daily groceries without needing a car to get outside of the neighborhood? And my second question would be around the transit station and the lack of transit options currently in the neighborhood. So my sister is attending Ohlone College in Fremont, and she requires me to drive her and to drop her off at school because she doesn't own a car and doesn't have a driver's license. And currently the closest bus stop to the neighborhood is a 25-minute walk outside the neighborhood. So would the city consider having transit options such as buses along Willow or in this development, so the transit station can be put to use before the rail station is constructed, which would be sort of years away? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. And I just want to acknowledge that the commission did get a copy of the email that you had sent to staff, so we have been able to review that as well. So why don't we start with your first question regarding the reduction in retail land use, and perhaps I'll turn it to staff, Mr. Turner or Mr. Interiano, if either one of you would like to perhaps address that.
Sure, I'll give it just a general overview, and then Mr. Interiano can add in. But yes, no, I mean, certainly the long-term vision of the Dumbarton TOD area included a mix of land uses. And over the years as projects were developed, some of that land use was changed from the original vision. And I think in order to achieve the need for residential development within this area, along with key open space areas such as the 5-acre Grand Park. But certainly the substantial change in land use vision from the specific plan was something that staff was concerned about, as Mr. Interiano and Ms. King mentioned earlier. So we did commission a study to take a look at those changes in land use to see if it really did make sense. Is there a market for office? Would there be demand for retail in a way where that retail and commercial would be successful? Because yes, we can require and force, say, retail space, but that doesn't mean that we'll be able to get tenants and that those tenants will ultimately be successful over the long term. So the analysis that we performed was really meant to ask those questions, and the result came back was that for the amount of commercial space that was programmed into the vision of the specific plan, that was likely, given the residential densities and the change in office use, that that commercial space probably would not be successful at that size, but at a lower size, smaller size, would likely be more successful. And so I think based with that information and based with the information that we took to Council and Planning Commission at the joint session, staff had the recommendation that we proceed with the land uses as anticipated by this project and by the applicant. So we're hopeful that the ground floor areas at the affordable housing development will be successful. They'll be small enough, they'll be neighborhood serving, that the residents will be able to use those spaces, and that would be successful. We are looking for other opportunities within that area. If there is a developer that believes that retail and additional commercial could be viable, we certainly want to support that and work with them to make sure that their belief that retail could work could be realized. So we'll continue to work with other applicants and property owners to see about the viability of commercial into the future.
Great, thank you. So staff would be open to a grocery store, small, albeit if it was
especially
viable.
Yes, I mean viable, and if we can really have that analysis, that it will be successful into the long term, because vacant spaces are not great as well. Certainly can attract nuisances and other types of things, and we definitely want to avoid that here.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then to Mr. Chu's second point regarding his concern about transit actually being there at some point in the near future.
Yeah, the city needs to have a lot of patience if we're to believe the Plan Bay Area 2050 folks of saying that Dumbarton Rail really won't come to this area for another 15, 20 years. That's a long time to wait. It's a long time for the city's initial vision to be implemented. So while we're waiting for that, and we're certainly going to be pushing and advocating for that to happen as soon as possible, we want to work with local shuttle providers, AC Transit, to see if we can place a park and ride or a similar high quality transit line in this area. It's going to be set up to accommodate that. Integral mentioned that they'll be doing short-term improvements that would allow those types of transit vehicle movements in the area, that will allow for some short-term parking on the site, and as well as some landscaping and open space that will create attractive space. So that is, I think, a common goal of both the city and of Integral to bring that amenity to this area.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Chu had one last recommendation. It was not a question he had. He just requested if staff would be open to looking at some additional amenities. And he mentions tennis courts or a basketball court. Frankly, I believe I heard there was 50 amenities in the proposed park.
Yes, yeah, certainly. The Grand Park is going to be a key, a visionary park for this area, and we want to try to accommodate as many users and facilities as possible, and make it flexible enough to meet the changing needs of the community, because we know, folks might want tennis courts today, but pickleball in 10 or 15 years. So we want to be flexible in those uses, and we'll continue to work with our city departments to help program those spaces appropriately.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, do we have anybody else on Zoom that wishes to speak on this?
No other Zoom participants tonight. Thank you.
Nobody else? Okay. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission for any additional questions or comments. Commissioner Fitz?
Yes, I just had a question. I guess it's on the park again. It's a magnificent-looking park. Now, is this design that we see before us now, is that locked in stone and there can't be any changes to it? Or is there additional opportunities for the public or citizens to comment at future meetings about the final design?
Yeah, no, I mean, really, the expectation is that the amenities that are being proposed are the amenities that are going to be built. We can certainly play around with the exact location and the exact size. Those might change between the renderings you see today and the building permits that get approved into the future. So I think there's some flexibility where we can, make minor changes to that. But really, we're expecting that the amenities that have been proposed by the applicant, that have been discussed by staff, are the ones that actually get built.
And how were those selected? Was there a public meeting about that before, over the years?
Yeah, I might ask Mr. Interiano if he can his work with the Parks Department on that.
So the majority of the park design was approved back in about 2018 with the FMC Willow, which is now called the Harbor Point Project. So there was, discussions back when the project was, the Harbor Point project was being considered. And, there was input by, city council at the meeting. I remember them talking about, some of the, where the parking should go, under the power lines. Some of those kind of comments kind of came up. So there was input back then. The changes or amendments that are proposed as part of this application are fairly minor. There's some improvements in some areas to the boundaries, but as far as this amendment agreement, they're fairly minor, the changes.
Yeah, it is amazing how long it takes for these things to come to fruition over the years. I just like to get a history lesson from time to time. Thank you, that's all I need to.
And Mr. Interiano, to that point also, there was recreation staff was involved in some of those discussions as well?
Yes, there is recreation staff, director, and the managers had some input on the design too.
Okay, great.
And the amenities, really. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, and, Commissioner Otterstetter.
Thank you. I just have a couple of comments, actually. I am very happy to see the affordable housing that you've included in this project. Thank you for that. I am also concerned about the parking that was brought up earlier. And I hope the city can work out something with some kind of timed arrangement or something for the residents to be able to use that parking area and once the transit station gets built out. The other thing I wanted to mention was that the mix of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms, since we were targeting that as a family type of affordable housing, I would really like to see more 2 bedroom set up there. I know it's probably late in the planning now, but certainly something for us to consider in the future. I think that's really important. And then one thing that I noticed was the hub area that you guys had designed as part of the plan. I never saw any drawings or drafts of what the inside of that would look like.
I can just explain real quick.
That'd be great.
It's, the hub is a community room for the residents of Willow, so it's paid for by the HOA and maintained. It's about 1,400, just under 1,500 square feet gross, about 1,200 net. Has 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, a couch with a big screen, and all these really cool folding doors that open up. And so it spills out onto the Grand Park. So it's a really great place to rent out for birthdays or weddings or engagement parties or whatever. It's just a really nice amenity where they can have their HOA meetings, but also have some fun too, a place for the kids to hang out and stuff.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And then I just have a clarifying question, I guess. Maybe I missed this in all the documents, but if the parking area for the transit station today is just green, with the plan eventually to build it up as a high-rise parking garage, I would assume, how does that get developed and where does that funding come from?
Yes, we want to leave enough footprint so that if a more high-density parking structure is required, that we have that place to put it. We will be looking with with Samtrans, whatever organization is organized to develop the rail line and develop transit stations along that rail line, what the transit station area design is. We also need to determine exactly really who this Newark transit station is for, and those are questions that we'll need to ask and answer in the long term. Is it really for the Newark community, or is it meant to be a regional rail hub where we could expect folks from outside of Newark to come and park here. And so those are questions that we need to ask and answer. We're not ready to do that at this time. Building a extremely large parking facility seems perhaps a little bit out of character for this site. I don't think we necessarily want to see this as a regional center, much like many BART stations are, but certainly more of a community station. But knowing that the ridership is important too, so we need to kind of balance the needs of the local design and the local committee with the need to have the ridership to make the transit line viable. So all of those get taken into account as we start to think more specifically about station area design.
Okay, just something to think about as we start also planning out and building out Old Town, New Town, whatever we want to call it in that area. That parking garage would be a close enough walk for someone to walk over, because there's going to be a lack of parking there, I would imagine, too, once we get to that point. So I just thought this would be a really good location for any kind of overflow from people visiting that area, too. Just a comment. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Commissioner Fitz?
Yes, I had just a point of reference is that there is a huge bus parking lot on Enterprise Drive that must have 50 commercial private tech buses and I see them stopping on Thornton and picking up 2 or 3 people at a time, and I see people driving over there. So there is a tremendous amount of public transportation that's available that goes across the bay and stuff, and somehow that should be able to be tied in with all the residents that live there, made aware of that. Maybe they could work out some kind of special stops area for that, because I do know I see 2 or 3 people over in the corridor of Willow and Thornton just waiting there with their phones, and the bus stops, opens up, and they go drive over to Foster City or Sunnyvale, like that. So that is an asset that is really there already. Now, whether we can tie that in to this public, it's just a thought that there might be some outreach there. That's all I had.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and entertain a motion to approve. We might as well do both of the resolutions concurrently. Now, these resolutions are a recommendation to the City Council, so it will be going to the Council for final approval. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve both of the resolutions as presented by staff.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Fitz, Commissioner Bogasich, seconds. Please vote. And the resolutions pass 4 ayes and 1 absent. Congratulations.
Yes.
Pass the first hurdle.
Thank you.
That's a long time coming, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
And Chair Becker, I also want to thank the participation of our planning team, of city staff. Also, we have 2 contract attorneys that have assisted us throughout this process. So we have Attorney John Getz and Attorney Christine Kroll that provided a great level of service and advice for city staff as we brought these recommendations to the Planning Commission tonight. So thank you to them as well.
And thank you for pointing that out. Okay. That concludes public hearings. That brings us to item F, which is staff reports, and we have no agendized staff reports scheduled this evening. Brings us to item G, which is commission matters. Item G1 is a report of city council actions, and do we have any report tonight?
No report of city council actions. However, I do want to introduce Sophia Castillo to my right. She is our newly hired administrative support specialist 2 role, and taking over for Lena Tran. So Lena Tran was promoted to payroll specialist in the finance department. So she has moved upstairs to begin her new career in finance. And we were lucky enough to hire Ms. Castillo from the New Haven Unified School District in Union City. And with many, many years of experience in supporting that organization. And we're very pleased to have her on board in community development and supporting us. She's here tonight because it's our vision and intention that Sophia supports the Planning Commission just as Lena was, but also participate and be at these meetings and help run the show while planning staff can kind of focus on our projects. So you'll be seeing Ms. Castillo here at Planning Commission meetings in the future.
Great. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, great.
No other comments from staff tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item H, Planning Commission comments. Do commissioners have any additional comments this evening?
I do.
Commissioner Fitz?
Yes. I just wanted to, while we were talking about this part of town, I do see the Honeywell property, which is across the street of Willow, just right across the street from the transit station. What's earmarked for that? I haven't seen any plans on that. Is that just on hold, or what's the vision for that?
Well, we have not received any formal or preliminary applications for that site in a number of years. Of course, that site is within the Bayside Newark TOD specific plan area, so it's subject to all of the plan policies and regulations as any other property would in that area. There has been a lot of analysis for that site in addition to all the other sites in the Bayside Newark TOD area, specifically with regards to wetlands in particular. And if you go by that area during winter months, and maybe not last year when it hardly rained, but in prior years where it does get rainy, that area does collect water. And so the analysis of that and the sort of the repercussions of sort of ponding water need to be evaluated and considered before any sort of development can be kind of proposed or considered. And so it's a little bit of a challenging site with regards to finding a feasible project that will be compatible and consistent with the analysis in prior environmental documents.
Now, does that Honeywell property also extend across the railroad tracks, the other side that backs right up to the existing single-family homes?
I believe that it does, yes.
Yeah.
I'll look to maybe some of the longtime Newark employees that might, okay, Ms. Kanko is also nodding her head, so I will take her expert opinion on that it does.
And then on the back side of that property, Honeywell is the part of the Glass Bay Park, right? That's right there. It's existing, that backs right up to the existing single family.
That's correct.
Okay, I just kind of wanted to know what's going on over there. Thanks.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, that brings us to item I, which is adjournment. We are adjourned.
That's a good.